It's great to be with you. I want to begin with a personal story from Fred Craddock, who wrote, "I recall some years ago being asked to go some distance to a meeting. A fellow going to the same meeting lived near me, and he said, 'You want to ride?' I said, 'Yeah,' saving the gasoline, the tear, and the wear. He said, 'I'll stop by for you.' When he came by, in the back seat were his wife, whom I had not met, and a daughter. She just graduated from college, a very attractive young woman. They were already in the back seat, and they said, 'Sit up there and y'all can talk.' I said, 'All right.' They said, 'We're not going to the meeting, we're just going shopping.' So we started out on this 200-mile drive. We'd gotten about 25 miles, and his wife, sitting directly behind him, said, 'You're going too slow.' So he sped up. Then she said, 'You're going to kill us all.' He slowed down. She said, 'We'll never get there. Are you going to pass here?' So he didn't pass. And she said, 'Why are you waiting in line?' He started to pass around when she said, 'You're going to pass all these cars?' So he got back in line. She said, 'Don't you see the yellow line? We're in the wrong lane. Pick, 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 pick.' Pretty soon, the daughter joined in, and this man was sitting there in silence. I was all embarrassed. What do you do? You don't want to be there. You'd rather be walking. So what do you do? I just sat there kind of stewing. I said to myself, if this fellow had any dignity, he'd pull his car over and leave a couple. Then he and I would go on to our meeting. Well, the farther we traveled, the more I began to say to myself, now, if this fellow had a shred of dignity, because I couldn't take it. When we got there, the wife and the daughter went shopping, and in the end, I had a few minutes, and he said, 'You want some coffee?' I said, 'Fine.' We went into a little place, and we sat there staring at the coffee. What do you say? How do you start a conversation? I knew, and he knew, and he knew that I knew. What do you do? I was just staring at my coffee as though it were real interesting coffee. Finally, he said, 'Fred, you teach in seminary?' I said, yeah. He said, 'You're into religion and all that.' Yeah. 'You know about ethics and philosophy.' Yeah, what are you talking about?" He said, "I'm just wondering if in your study and in your opinion, what hope do you think there is for a person who has everything in life at age 50? Everything in life they want, except the one thing they want the most? Everything in life, everything you want, except the one thing you want the most. What is it? What is it that we want the most? Is it dignity, peace of mind, happiness, satisfaction? Is it lots of money or recognition? Are we sure we even know what we really want? Are we sure that what we think we want is what we're really yearning for, what will really make us happy? So many people find themselves chasing a life path only to discover, like a dog chasing a car, that when they finally get what they've been chasing, it's not what they expected it to be. Many of us come here or seek out places where we can be reminded of what's most important in life. We don't want to be on autopilot, just going through the motions of our life. And we don't want to wake up years later feeling that we didn't live the life we wanted to live. So one question that we can ask is whether All Souls really can help to remind us and help lead us where we most want to go. One thing people seem to be looking for today is peace of mind in a troubled and divided country and a divided world. Most of us would like a little assurance, a little stability in these uncertain times. Many people feel that democracy and the rule of law are in jeopardy. Trans folks and immigrants and women and other minorities fear losing rights. So what are we to do? The environment is in danger. What are we supposed to be doing? With the level of gun violence and mass shootings, how do we stay sane and live our life with a sense of purpose? We're failing terribly to offer adequate education for our children, for all children. We're imprisoning far too many of our citizens. Health care and health insurance seem to be in disarray. And even after this murder that happened last week, I'm seeing stuff online. People are posting things online that I just can't even believe that they're saying, as if they're, happy that it happened, that this was good, that the guy deserved, all this kind of stuff. And I'm thinking, what is our world coming to? And we seem to go from one crisis and one news cycle to the next so fast that we don't even have time to grieve or to respond or to process before the next thing occurs. How can we find peace without escape? How can we find peace and still stay engaged? Many people are tuning out in order to maintain their sanity. A lot of people say they're not listening to the news, they're not reading the paper, they're off of social media, they're just tuning it all out. And it's understandable. But it's not a long-term solution to the problems that we face. An ostrich famously hides its head in the sand, hoping its problems will go away if it doesn't look at them. It makes for a nice, easy meal for its predators. These questions were big for the late poet Sam Hamill. Shortly before he died, he published a poem titled True Peace. It begins with him reflecting back on his early 20s when he joined the Marine Corps and he was stationed in Okinawa, Japan. While he was there, he began studying Zen Buddhism and he became a pacifist. He spent the rest of his life trying to advocate for peace. He writes, "Half broken on that smoky night, hunched over sake in a serviceman's dive somewhere in Naha, Okinawa, nearly 50 years ago, I read of the Saigon Buddhist monks who stopped the traffic on a downtown thoroughfare so their master, Thich Quang Duc, could take up the lotus posture in the middle of the street. And they baptized him there with gas and kerosene, and he struck a match and burst into flame. That was June 1963, and I was 20, a U.S. Marine. The master did not move, did not squirm. He did not scream in pain, and his body was consumed. Neither a child nor yet a man. I wondered to my Okinawan friend, what can it possibly mean to make such a sacrifice? To give one's life with such honor, but with dignity and conviction. How can anyone endure such pain and never cry and never blink? And my friend said simply, Thich Quang Duc had achieved true peace. And I knew that night, true peace for me would never come. Not for me, Nirvana. This suffering world is mine to suffer in its grief. Half a century later, I think of Thich Nhat Hanh, revered as a bodhisattva now, like a saint. His lifetime building temples, teaching peace, and of his death and the statement it made. His heart refused to burn even when they burned his ashes once again in the crematorium. His generous heart turned magically to stone. What is true peace? I cannot know. 100 wars have come and gone as I've grown old. I bear their burdens in my bones. Mine is the heart that burns today. Mine the thirst, the hunger in the soul. Old master, old teacher, what is it that I have learned? Here ends the poem. The poet seems to be saying he could not find inner peace when to him it would seem that our house is burning down with people inside. For those of us who are not willing or not able to run away from the world and its problems, how is it that we can find inner peace? I don't think people come to All Souls to escape the world, but rather to find meaningful ways to engage with life and to make the most of their life. 20th century Unitarian theologian James Luther Adams explained our tradition saying, "Our religion is personal, but it's not private." What he meant was that it's personal in the sense that each of us who comes to All Souls is given the freedom to discover and to live out our beliefs and values as we are given to know them. But it's not private because we feel that we have a sense of responsibility to use our lives and our values to help make the world better. Not just for ourselves, but for the common good of all people and all life. With that in mind, over the years, I've discovered two qualities in people who live with peace and with purpose. These are the bullet points, by the way, if you're taking notes. The first is that people who live with both peace and purpose work within their sphere of influence. Even though there are a lot of things in the world to be concerned about, from global warming to domestic abuse, from world peace to book bans, since nobody has the ability to impact all of it, people who work on the things that they can actually influence feel effective and feel empowered. I remember shortly after coming to Tulsa, I was working with Native American leaders here who were trying to get Union Public Schools to stop using the offensive Redskins mascot. These folks put up a great effort, and I was honored to stand with them in many public forums as an ally. One Sunday, I delivered a message about it right here at All Souls, and a man came out of the service and was visibly upset with me, and he asked why I was wasting my time talking about such a ridiculous issue. And when he said, I could have been talking about peace in the Middle East. And I told him that I chose this topic because I thought that All Souls and I could possibly make a difference on this issue. And back then in 2002, I didn't think a sermon from me here in Tulsa, Oklahoma on Middle East peace was likely to have much impact on the Middle East. Now keep in mind, this was before our services were on the internet. So a message on Sunday morning in this church was to whoever showed up in the building that day. My point is that one of the qualities that I have found in people who live with peace but stay engaged is that they put their time and their effort into activities where they can have some actual influence. Which leads me to the second quality that I see in people who stay engaged and still live with a sense of peace and purpose. And interestingly, it's in direct tension with the first one. It's that these folks find hope in doing what they believe is right, even when they're not sure if their effort will make a difference. Obviously, the work we did to try to end the use of Native American names as mascots in Oklahoma did not succeed for another 20 years. Union Public Schools finally changed their mascot to the Red Hawks in 2022, about a year and a half ago. Back then, when we were challenging the name of the mascot, there was little traction and there was a lot of resistance. And we were told that we were idiots and troublemakers and called all kinds of names. Now, I've never been treated so rudely at a school board than the way I was treated when I came to speak on that issue back then. We didn't know if things would ever change, but we were all convinced that it was the right thing to do. And when we feel that we're standing on the right side of history, even if we're not sure that we're going to have any impact, it can fill us with peace and a sense of purpose. Now, I find hope that there are people willing to sacrifice and struggle and be ridiculed for what they believe in, even when there's no guarantee of success. I find hope in living a life that takes stands, that seeks change, that involves sacrifice for something larger than oneself. Poet Sam Hamill said in his poem at the end of a long life of advocating for peace, 100 wars have come and gone, and I've grown old. I bear their burdens in my bones. Mine, the heart that burns today. Mine, the thirst, the hunger in the soul. Here at All Souls, we're not offering a path that claims to release you from all the burdens and the strains of life. This is a path for people whose hearts burn, whose minds thirst, and whose souls hunger for a brighter future with peace, liberty, and justice for all. We know that we'll probably not see it all in our lifetime, but we find hope and dignity and peace in living lives that transcend our own time. What is it that we want the most? Not to live empty lives. And to that end, we join together across our differences to be reminded week to week of what life is about, and to give each other the courage to live lives of peace, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love.